What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Red and Gold Standard Podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I am joined by my co-hosts Matt Llewellyn and Mike Andrews of Nothing But Niners. We got a great show planned for you this evening. So before I toss it over to my guys, make sure you hit like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share the post on X. And without further ado, Matt, how you doing this evening?
Doing pretty good, man. Was able to make my wife a nice little steak dinner before I came up. And, you know, that was something that was nice, getting ready for the 4th. I don't know what's happening with Mike. He's going in and out. But overall, not doing bad, man. The daughter is starting to be on the move. She crawls now. Today was the first day she pulled herself up on furniture. So I think I'm in a lot of trouble, but really, really cool to watch her start growing up and stuff. So overall, really good day, man.
That's awesome. Glad to hear. Mike suddenly lost sound. I'm not sure.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, that's great. I can't hear you. So let me change my I'll change my audio.
Check your Windows audio settings.
I guess my TV, and then
maybe type it in the chat.
I can hear you guys, but I don't want any feedback, so let me turn it down. Sorry. All right, and then I'll try to work it out. But what's going on, man? Guys, I'm happy to be here. I don't know anything that you guys said, but it's been a long time since we've had any discussions about the 49ers or anything pertaining to them. So I'm really, really excited. I'm glad that we can get together on today's show, man. Right before the holiday, too, man. Happy 4th to you guys.
That's right. Happy 4th. Happy 4th, fellas. All right, so we got a great show planned for you this evening. Like I said, we are going to get into it. It's been a couple of weeks. I know everybody else is out there dealing with the heat just like we are. So hopefully we're going to give you a nice, cool, refreshing show. First topic, as always, it seems like it's been for the past about a million months at this point. Brandon Ayuk. So Brandon Ayuk went on the Pivot podcast and a few clips went viral. I'm sure you guys saw them, but in case you didn't, I'm going to play a little clip from it. It's a minute and a half or so long, so bear with us while we play this. Make sure the screen's up. All right.
I feel like right now I'm in the right place, in the right spot with the right quarterback right now, but we're not on the right turn. So. I mean, turn on the TV, they talking about me. I get on my phone, they talking about me. But right now, it's about one thing.
Best pure or natural receiver on your team. If an OG can give you any advice, it's to continue to keep it away from me.
It was leaked how much you were offered. It's a little bit frustrating for actual numbers and actual stuff like that to come out. I felt it was a little bit disrespectful, a little bit unfair to me. It's a dirty game.
I want a Lamborghini, but I can't afford it.
You can't afford a Lamborghini, you can't have one.
And in that analogy, your ass is a Lamborghini.
How can a guy that's all pro, over 1,300 yards, only have 3 catches in the Super Bowl?
Well, you played in the Super Bowl?
No, it's just
I wasn't going to go there.
No. I'm just asking. You have
2 times.
Mad.
So when you say don't forget what got you there, are you saying that had nothing to do with the amount of times you were targeted?
Well, I'm Matt. It's probably the best feeling ever in terms of playing football. And I think once you get out of there, different results than you were expecting the whole entire time for those 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever the case may be, you feel it.
Shannon and I, we've never played in a Super Bowl nor lost.
I shouldn't have a Super Bowl loss.
If you was in a more pass-oriented offense, you ever think about what you could do?
That's what we do. That's what I'm thinking about right now. True ace.
I'm laughing, but I'm crying for real. And you're talking to Jaden Daniels, and you say, man, they don't want me back.
Got off the phone with the Niners. They told me what they told me. I passed the information on to him.
There's no way the Niners said, Brandon Ayuk, first-round pick, we don't want you back. Patrick Queen right now, he watering his grass out in his front yard because Marlon Humphrey said the grass may not be greener. How do you focus on not taking contract negotiations personally?
Are you not supposed to?
I'm asking you.
I'm taking it personal. I was a JUCO product that went to Division I to first-round draft pick to second-team All-Pro. And I just want a team to look at me and value me as a top receiver.
Signing bonus as an undrafted free agent was like $683, right? This is real talk.
Say what?
What did he just say?
You got to say him, honey.
Can't do nothing wrong, Fred. Goodness gracious.
I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing.
And all of that, what
That's the gist of it, right? So, Matt, I'll start with you. When you see that clip, and obviously there were specific ones that kind of made the rounds, but what's your initial take on Brandon Ayuk and him sharing his thoughts on the contract situation?
I mean, I'm not surprised. I feel like that this has been a thing with wide receivers for years and years and years now. It's just interesting that a lot of people don't seem to notice that it's mainly wide receivers that are, give me the money, give me the money, give me the money. You don't hear a lot of quarterbacks out there doing this type of thing. You don't hear, for the most part, defensive linemen. You don't hear even running backs, right? Which, Mike, we talked about last time we were on the show, how we'd like to see running backs get more of a bag. But, we don't hear about running backs, saying, oh, I need this, I need that. They don't value me. They don't want me, this and that. I think that Ayuk's mistake was letting business become personal for him. And I get it. At a certain point, of course, that's your livelihood. That's your paycheck. But what I'm hearing out of this is that, he thinks the 49ers don't value him at all. Now, they might not value him like they would value a Justin Jefferson or something like that. But that doesn't mean that they think you're like a bum and they're not going to pay you. They just might not. You guys are just apart a couple million. And that does matter. I understand that. But that's still generational wealth. So it rings a little bit hollow for me. And at this point, I've heard enough from everything, I think the 49ers really have to get whoever's leaking stuff in their building, because there's pretty obvious at this point there's leaks. They got to find out where that leak is and plug it. And Ayuk just needs to stop talking. Just listen, it'll get done if it gets done, right? Just let it get done. And if it doesn't get done, then you can worry about it then. But fact of the matter is, he's still under contract with the 49ers. He's going to be there this year. And that's the way that it is. If you're patient and you work with it, I'm sure they're going to come out to an agreement. We went through the same thing with Debo. They came to an agreement. We went with Fred, who didn't say nothing. They came to an agreement. Kittle, agreement. Other than DeForest Buckner, the 49ers have paid every single guy that they've needed to pay. And I think that they learned a lot from the Buckner trade, where that didn't work out the way that they wanted it to. And so they've kind of learned from that the known quantity, right? The old saying, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, right? Yeah, you could trade them for draft picks, but you don't know what those draft picks are going to be, right? And the guy they drafted to replace Buckner is no longer on the team. So if he just stays patient and just lets it happen, I would expect it to happen in training camp when people are in the building and it's getting down to nut cutting time. But I would just say you said everything you need to say. Now just let it play out.
Mike, before I get your thoughts, I want to add to that. Matt, you said he'll be here at least this year, possibly next year as well. I mean, the 49ers really want to play this game. You're on a contract for 1 year. We'll slap that franchise tag on you. There you go. Mike, what's your thoughts on this whole podcast?
So I'm glad you asked it that way, the way that you did. I don't know what's going on with my background. It's actually kind of annoying me. So I apologize, guys, right now. Did it fix just then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And it stops again. So I did a breakdown of this entire episode on my Patreon page. And I don't think Ayuk is necessarily doing or saying anything wrong here, right? I don't think that he's really had any missteps throughout this whole thing, except for the part where it was clearly a fake stage situation with Jaden, and he's watching the clip, and it's oh, my girl's recording it, and she's he got me vlogging it and all that, right? It was clearly a setup, and it was fake from the rip. However, this is just par of the course for negotiations at this point in time, right? These guys go on social media, they air their grievances. He hasn't done any of the flagrant things like saying I want to go to another team or anything. Even in this situation right here, they said, where do you want to be or where do you see yourself? He's oh, with the Niners for sure. I don't want to go anywhere. And then it was, if they don't want you, where do you want to go? And it was I could probably see myself with, Washington, or that's when they had to ask those kind of questions, right? I think his foul up in this entire pivot interview was allowing Ryan Clark to say, you contacted us to do this. What message is it that you want? Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was Channing. It was Channing that actually said that. You contacted us to do this. What message is it that you want to get out? That's where it was oh, man, wow, this is just one big ploy. This is just one big let me get my side out thing, right? They didn't reach out to you. You reached out to them and said, hey, guys, I'm going to be in town. You didn't get your hair done. I know this doesn't mean anything to you guys, right? Maybe you guys didn't notice because you see the locks and you think it's all good, right? But the reason I wear these things on my head is because my hairline is I don't know how far into it we are. My hairline is messed up, right? So if I were to lift this up and take this off, you guys might not be able to tell that I haven't had my hair done in a while. But if you're a person with locks, you know what you're looking for, and you can say, oh, man, my man is going through it. It's been a long time since he's had his shit done, right? So I've been looking at things like that. I've been looking at Debo.
Wait, are you saying that he made himself look like a little ratty on purpose, like for the appearances?
I'm not saying
or
ratty.
Do you think, or do you? Well, I'm sorry. That's. I guess that's my turn. A little disheveled or not like buttoned up on purpose to try to like.
No,
is it a
no.
sympathy thing, or you think he's actually like?
See, this is a great question. I'm going to tell you why this is a great question, right? Because if you don't understand what I'm saying, it's not going to make any sense to you. If you reach out to a platform that's massive and doesn't need you to come on for views, you're at their mercy, right? So if he reached out to nothing but Niners or 49ers Hive, we're going to dance around his schedule of availability.
Okay, now I see what you're saying. Now
watch this, saying. Right? The pivot doesn't need to work around his schedule. We have an audience. We're going to get our views with or without you. You want to come on? We'll call you and tell you when we're available. Boom. Now you got to fly over here. You bring whoever you're with, and you're going to go. You didn't have time to get your hair done. That's how desperate you were to get your side of the story out to everyone else. You understand what I'm saying? And that's the difference. That was the biggest mistake to me throughout this. And I didn't even say that on my Patreon. So you guys are getting even more out of me, right? Like, that was the biggest mistake. Yeah. That was the biggest mistake with this, right? You reached out to them and you were so desperate to get on their platform. You didn't take time to get your hair retwisted. You didn't take time to get your shape up done or any of that kind of stuff. Like, they called you and said, all right, you know what? We got availability on Wednesday. Dude, it's Monday. We'll get here in 2 days, or you miss your opportunity. And he went with Jaden Daniels, with its daughter, Jaden Daniels' daughter, right? And then like the one other guy that was there, and they worked this whole thing into it. He's not necessarily saying I don't want to be here. He's not saying that I don't think the Niners want me, because Ryan Clark held his feet to the fire. You're not going to sit here and tell me that the Niners told you they don't want you. What happened? They said they don't want me at this number. And to break that down a little bit further, and I'll be done on this topic, right? He said, after the Super Bowl, right after the Super Bowl, he started negotiating with him, and I thought we were close. So close that it was like, I got to get my suit ready. I got to get over there. And then other guys started getting their contracts, and it changed the market. I want to point this out to you guys right here. Immediately after the Super Bowl, in order to make Brandon Ayuk the 5th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, the Niners would have only had to given him $26 million a year, right? Now, today, after 3 other contracts have been done, to make him the 5th highest paid player in the NFL, they got to give him over 28. Doesn't sound like much, but we're talking about a difference of $10 million in the contract right now. That's how big of a difference we're talking about. Over a 4-year contract, by the way. Like, it's that significant. Now, you went from the 5th highest paid guy getting only 24, 25 million. Now the 5th highest paid guy is getting 28, 29 million today, before Brandon Ayuk gets his contract, per year. So when you start to extrapolate that over the course of the contract, now you're talking about a difference of $10 million. The Niners dropped the ball by playing the whole, we don't sign anybody until August, early September, right? They dropped the ball with that. If you had jumped on it, and his team isn't looking at, this is who he is in the system, this is where he is. He's a number 1 or a number 2. Now that you're agreeing with us that he's a number 1, this is the range for number 1s, because Waddle is the first guy on the list as a number 2. No one's going to sit here and call Brandon Ayuk a number 2 on this team. And that's the trouble that they run into. That's where they fall short, because Waddle's a number 2 behind Tyreek Hill, right? And he's the first number 2 on that list at $28 million a year. You can't pay me that if you're going to sit here and acknowledge me as a number 1. You got to give me more than that. And that's where the Niners dropped the ball. That's where they messed up.
So two things real quick, Matt, and then I'll let you go. One, this is why I will continuously be pissed off at the way the 49ers handle business and waiting until so late in the offseason / beginning of the next season to get these deals done, because they sit around while all these other players get these deals, and then the price tag goes up. And two, there were reports coming out. Obviously, we were all live for the draft. The anticipation of will Brandon Ayuk be traded that first round night, that they're shopping him like a number 1 top 3 receiver, but negotiating with him like a tier 2 top 15 receiver. And I think obviously that's the right approach from the team. I just thought it was notable that was being put out there by whose camp? I don't know. The teams, other teams, Ayuk's camp. I just thought it was worth pointing out. Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, one thing that I will say is that I don't think that you can necessarily call Jalen Waddle a number 2. I think him and Tyreek do different things, but if you put Jalen Waddle on another team, he'd be their number 1. It just so happens that Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill, and he's like a super freak, and whatever the case may be.
That kind of furthers my point. Don't switch it to me, but that furthers my point, right? Ayuk on another team would be a number 1 easily. He's a number 1 on this team,
sure,
but barely viewed as a number 1.
Right, but Jalen Waddle's the 5th highest paid receiver in the NFL over people like Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp and DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, like some of these other guys that are really good receivers. So it's not like he's not being paid like a number 2. He's just the latest number 1 to get his deal. So he's being paid like a number 1, and he plays like a number 1. His production is that of a number 1. It is.
Yeah. So no, I'm agreeing with you.
What I'm saying is, if he makes, let's just say the 49ers are like, all right, cool, we'll match Jalen Waddle, and he doesn't want to do that, then like that's him, dude. That's like you'll be the 5th highest paid receiver in the NFL. After that point, we're getting into a little bit of unrealistic territory. And the whole thing of like, again, it's easy to play hindsight 2020. Oh, they could have had me for this number. Well, we don't know what the 49ers actually had. When did the last year of the D Ford contract come off the books? When did George Kittle and Javon Hargrave restructure their contract to create cap room for the team? When did certain bonuses hit? Was it at the end of the league year, the beginning of the other? There are things that are in flux that you can't just say, yes, in a vacuum, you could say, oh, they could have had me like right here. I think the 49ers had the groundwork in place for a deal and then didn't expect the numbers to be what they were, right? Because one of the first dominoes to drop was Calvin Ridley, right? Who didn't necessarily have a good season with Jacksonville last year and still ended up with a 4-year, $92 million contract. So then it's like, then if I'm Ayuk's agent and I see what Ridley got, I'm like, hold on a second. We got more guys that need to go. Now we're going to wait. Now we're going to play the waiting game. So it's easy to say, oh, they could have had me for this, right? But then, who's to say that the 49ers were in a position to negotiate that deal with everything else coming up? It's not just as simple as let's extend this player. And I know no new money would have came onto the deal for his, annual salary, but there is something to be said that the signing bonus, there's some calculator for that, how that's supposed to count against your cap and things like that. This was pre the draft. They tried to, at the draft, it's widely known that they at least took calls on Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. So if Deebo Samuel gets moved, maybe then they pay more for Ayuk or whatever. But Pearsall was their pick as a wide receiver in the first round. Like something was going on. So I don't think it's necessarily as simple as, oh, they could have had me for this. I think there's much more that goes into it than that. And it does suck that the price is going to be higher now, but I don't know that they would have been able to do anything about it anyway.
Mike, okay, I'll go. Sorry, I wasn't sure if I think overall a deal still gets done. The Kenny 49ers says Matt's cooking. I think the reports are the 49ers, and this is what I find most interesting, Mike. You were saying that BA was saying, we were so close to having a deal done right after the Super Bowl. I almost had my suit. And that deal was, if I had to guess, probably around 26. But the reports coming out like right now are that the 49ers are still around 26 and Brandon's closer to 28. That bridge may seem easy. That gap may seem easy to bridge, but in reality, like Mike said, that's a $10 million difference over the span of a few years, the span of a lifetime of contract. I've asked you guys this basically every show since they've been so sporadic this offseason. Do you think a deal gets done? Mike, I'll start with you. Do you think a deal gets done with the 49ers? And if so, when? I'll add that.
I think that him coming out saying that a deal was almost done means that they are trying, right? I don't know. I don't know the edge of the line that the Niners are teetering, right? We all know that Brock Purdy's contract is coming up, and we know how detrimental to the cap space that's going to be. Can you afford to have, and the same thing goes for the Miami Dolphins, right? I want to use them, and I want to use the Eagles as the catalyst here, right? Like I want to use them as a team that we really put under the microscope. Both of those teams have at least one wide receiver, one running back, one defensive edge guy, getting paid, top 10 money in their categories, and a quarterback, right? Like the Niners are about to get there for the first time in a really, really long time. And so it's like, can we afford it? And that's kind of the limbo that we're in right now. I think that he's going to be here this year. I just don't know how much of a difference that $3 million a year is going to make in the grand scheme of things. I don't know, unless they add years on to the contract, which if I'm the agent, I say no, don't add years on. If I'm the team, I say add on as many years as possible. Right? Like that's going to help us out in the grand scheme of things, because 2 years from now, today's deal is going to look like chump change compared to what it is right now, right? If every year 3 or 4 guys reset the market, then the deal's not going to look that significant. But I don't know. I don't know that a deal is going to get done. I was encouraged hearing him say that they were close. I'm not encouraged by the idea that if they were close, why hasn't it gotten done yet? That's the flip side to it. So honestly, I don't know. If you hold my feet to the fire and say yes or no, I'll say yes because I'm optimistic about it.
Matt?
I'm optimistic that a deal gets done, mainly because there's a lot of things that that we look at in just like right now, we're talking about, Ayuk wants to make $28 million a year. Well, what does that look like? What does that $28 million look like? How much is it in guarantees? How many years is it? What's the total amount of the contract? How much of it is backloaded versus front loaded? Like what's due at signing? There's 1,000 things. How is he playing that against California state income tax? How is he playing that against, whatever future earnings are going to be? Like Mike said, do they put void years on it? Do they do this? Do they do that? There are 1,000 things. And here's the other thing too, that we're not talking about. This contract isn't, when he signs a contract, that's not just going to be the contract. You know that they're going to try to restructure it. You know that they're going to extend it out. You know that they're going to convert some to signing bonus. They literally, every team does it with every player. It's like at some point or another, they're really quibbling over nickels and dimes. And at that point, I don't think that you could let somebody that's as vital to your team as Ayuk go quibbling over nickels and dimes. Like I said before, they made a mistake with DeForest Buckner, and they decided to trade him away because they didn't think that they could pay him and Eric Armstead. They took the chance on Armstead because Armstead was the lower salary guy and tried to turn that into a draft pick. But it didn't work out for the 49ers, and you have to be careful with these things. The 49ers have a couple of free agents coming up. Charvarius Ward, Deommodore Lenoir is going to be coming up. What do you do at the safety position, which now looks like there's one too many players? If Malik Mustafa works out and if Talanoa Hufanga rounds back into form, and then, you have Jair Brown, you got to, what are you going to do with the offensive line once Trent Williams either gets paid again or retires? There are 1,000 things. You got to pay Brock Purdy. 1,000 things the 49ers have to do. So the contract isn't just going to stand the way that it is. But, they're not going to let him walk out over, these nickel and dime issues. So I think the ball is in Ayuk's court, and I'm hoping that his agent recognizes a good deal or at least a good compromise. The compromise should be both parties walk away like they got shafted a little bit. That's the sign of a good negotiation. Neither party is happy. That's just how it's going to have to be, because he's not going to make Justin Jefferson money. We can throw that out the window. He doesn't have the production of Amon-Ra St. Brown. So he's capped at what he can do. And I think the cap is the Jalen Waddle contract. I don't think that he can go more for that. Now, again, is it going to be a 3-year deal, a 4-year deal? What is it going to be? Guarantees, whatever, but I do think they get something done.
Matt, I just want to ask you this really quick. Are you looking at Jalen Waddle's contract as a number 1 wide receiver contract or number 2? I heard you say on other teams it's what he is, but how do you think the Dolphins structured Jalen Waddle's contract?
I think they structured it as him being a number 1 guy and Tyreek Hill being 30 years old. Because Tyreek Hill is not going to be able to keep up Tyreek Hill production. He's naturally entering the back 9 of his career or whatever. And while Tyreek Hill has, again, has that insane production, he's the deep threat and this and this and that. Honestly, one works off of the other. Jalen Waddle is like the chain chewer. He's the guy that gets a lot of the targets on 3rd and need to make a first down type of thing. I don't think that they view him as a number 2. I think they view it as they have 2 number 1s, to be honest.
So I'll wrap up this topic with a quote from Albert Breer in his latest Sports Illustrated mailbag. Somebody asked about an update regarding the meeting between Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers. He said, obviously things aren't in the best place with Brandon Ayuk right now, but I'd compare this to where the 49ers once were at the same juncture with Deebo Samuel. At this point in the calendar, Samuel had stayed away from San Francisco's offseason program outside of the mandatory 3-day training minicamp and was planning on a hold-in from training camp until he got paid, which happened less than a week into camp. If you remember, one of the issues Samuel's camp raised with the Niners was his use as a running back. The team had leaned on him in the late 2021 season at the position, and in the passing game worked him as a 3rd option behind Ayuk and Kittle. The idea at the time was that Samuel viewed himself as a true number 1 and was tired of having to carry the burden of playing running back as well. Funny how money solved all of that. He got a blockbuster 3-year extension. He averaged 3.7 carries per game since in 2021. He's averaged 4.4 carries per game over the 2 years since. The point is, a lot of posturing goes on in negotiations like this. The Niners went through it that summer with Samuel, even mentioning the possibility of trading him around that April's draft, and again last summer with Nick Bosa. So it's not like they're going to jam on the panic button. The best thing for the team on the cusp of the championship is to have a guy like Ayuk, who's more of a pure number 1 receiver than Samuel is, on board. I think they will get Ayuk there over the next couple of months, even if things seem bleak now. So interesting insight from Albert Breer, and that kind of ties into our next topic because Albert Breer shared his thoughts on this, and that is a possible addition to the 49ers secondary in Justin Simmons. So I want to read this quote from Albert Breer to you guys, and then I'll get your thoughts on possibly adding the former Broncos safety. He talked about how, loving the idea of Justin Simmons in a Vic Fangio style defense. And then he goes on to mention that Brandon Staley, who Simmons knows very well, is now in San Francisco. So there's a possibility that there's just mutual interest, which we've heard about kind of this entire time, this offseason. The 49ers were linked to Justin Simmons right when free agency started. There were mutual interests, I should say, right when he was released by the Broncos. Is this a luxury piece? Do the 49ers even have the ability to make this move? Mike, I'll start with you. Should they and could they, I guess, are my 2 questions, add Justin Simmons?
It really comes down to what the 49ers feel they have in-house, right? There is, I don't know if you guys saw the report about the positive test coming out for Tashaun Gibson and all that stuff, right? And not that it bears anything right now because he's not on the roster, but if they were thinking about bringing him back on the low, he's no longer available for the first 6 games of the season, right? So now it's like, what did we want to do? Do we really want to spend time developing these two young guys? Because let's be clear, Jair Brown and Talanoa Hufanga are both very young guys who need a lot more development. Both of those guys are far from finished products, right? And I would say that they are interchangeable in their positions. We really need to find a true free safety. Could Simmons be that guy? Could he come in here and help out? That's what's really going to come down to. We don't know what the rookie and Malik Mustafa is going to be. I thought Simmons was a real possibility, a real likelihood, him wanting to go to a team that's going to be playoff bound and things like that, right? Like, we are a perfect fit for what Simmons brings to the table. I think that the Niners should look into it, if I'm being completely honest with you. I am not sold, and you guys know how I am about my Jersey guys, right? I'm not sold on Jair Brown. I'm not sold on Talanoa Hufanga. And the fact that I'm not sold on either one of those guys means everybody behind them is just a huge question mark. I say bring in the veteran who's got some NFL experience. You've seen him do it at this level for multiple years. You know the worst case scenario with him. Get him in here. Let him solidify a spot, and then you work on the other spot and see what you can get.
Okay. Matt, same question. What are your thoughts on adding Justin Simmons?
I think it's worth a look, but I don't think they would do anything before the start of training camp. I think they want to get their guys in the building and see how they look throughout the first parts of practice. You're going to want to see how Talanoa Hufanga is recovering from the ACL tear, and how Jair Brown has either grown or not grown. And I know it's hard to look at that without any meaningful snaps or whatever, but they're going to be under scrutiny. There's also the prospect of more cut downs from other teams, and the fact that Mike touched on Tashawn Gibson, 6-game suspension or whatever. I mean, that's always an option for a guy who's a known quantity. I mean, maybe by the time you get 6 games in, you're like, all right, we really need a dude. We can bring this guy in who would probably be cheaper at that point, or you could wait for somebody to be a camp casualty. I just don't think that you necessarily have to rush out and get somebody like Simmons. While I do think that it's interesting, and like Mike said, we have needed a true center fielder for a while in terms of the safety position. I just don't think that you necessarily have to rush into this thing. See how everything is looking in-house before you start looking outside the doors, because the goal of drafting these guys is to develop them. And I don't think that if at the first sign of a struggle, you're like, oh God, we got to go get Justin Simmons. I don't think that's a good way to build a team. So, this will be Hufanga's 4th year. This will be Brown's 2nd year. We have a rookie coming in. I think that's a good stagger for experience and the way to keep a position with a nice vet, but also staying young. So I like the churn of talent they've had at the position.
Yeah, I think my take on this is it would be 1,000% a luxury pick, or luxury addition, I should say. Would he be nice? Yes, he'd probably be costly for the position. And I think it would come, just like both Matt and Mike said before me, at the expense of the younger players the 49ers just spent draft capital on in the past couple of years. I think that they kind of owe it to the team to see what they have there. So I agree with both of you guys. I would be surprised to see them make this move unless for some reason Justin Simmons is willing to take like a super team-friendly deal and come, for the shot of winning the championship. Then sure, bring it in. Why not make the secondary as good as possible? I don't see it happening. We do have a super chat from our guy Sean. He said, "What's up, guys? 110 at my new, I assume it means new NorCal home yesterday. 106 today. BA needs to quit whining. He is not all that. KITT, CMC, Debo, and Jennings have taken over games. Not BA. He is solid, not great. Let him go. What's up, Mike?" I don't know if I would say he hasn't taken over games. Thank you for your contribution,
Right.
Sean.
Yeah.
Mike, you guys are saying that
go ahead.
Very dismissively. What game has Brandon Ayuk ever taken over for the 49ers?
I mean, off the top of my head,
one.
that Steelers game, week 1 of last year.
He took that game over? What?
He had, 120 yards and 3 touchdowns?
that was a blowout though. Like, all right, I guess.
Well, thanks to Brandon Ayuk, it was.
I digress. That's fair. Okay.
It's hard because they don't use him like that, in my opinion. That's my take. They don't use him as they use him like on first downs, chain mover. When it's 1st and 10, he's good for like 18. It seems like that's always the case. I would love to have seen in the Super Bowl in nut cutting time them go to him, because I feel like it would have been a different outcome had he had more than however many targets he had, 3, 4, the entire Super Bowl would have been a little different. Matt, did you have something to add?
No, I just what are we really talking about in terms of how do you define taking over a game? I mean, again, like you said, that Steelers game, there's been multiple games where he's had, like big chunk plays and gotten open and really made people look silly, to where the 49ers had a lot of big leads last year and then they weren't throwing as much. And again, they're not a team that is centered around throwing the ball down the field. I don't think that a position, if you're looking for a wide receiver to take over a game, you still need a quarterback to get him the ball. So I don't know that it's a position that can truly dominate a game completely independently, because they're dependent on a guy getting them the ball. So I think that he's very, very good. The 49ers' best pure wide receiver, their best route runner on the team. I'd like to see what they have with Pearsall, but I don't know. I think that he is better than solid. Let's just say that. I think calling him solid is a little bit diminishing of what he actually is. So that's just my opinion, though.
Yeah. Agreed. But go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, I agree with that. I just don't know that, like, when the game's on the line, right? There's been games where the Niners were down. You guys think about that Packers playoff game, and we were going back and forth, blow for blow, and you got the clip of Debo saying, Kyle, give me the ball, put the ball in my hands, right? Like, there's no game where Ayuk is that guy for this team. If we've got a comfortable lead and we can manipulate people, all of a sudden we can go to our 3rd or 4th option and he can just go ahead and continue to feast, right? Like, that's why guys like Kendrick Bourne and Jawan Jennings go out and they can be really good on 3rd downs, right? Because they're 3rd or 4th options. That kind of goes the same way for Brandon Ayuk, right? If I'm the team, I'm looking at him like, you're good here because you're the 3rd or 4th option. We don't know that you would be good if Kittle was out and Debo was out and we had to use you as the number 1 option. We don't know that to be true. None of us do. Not a single one of us have seen Ayuk having to be the number 1 option and still producing. We haven't seen it.
By the way, didn't Ayuk lead the NFL in yards per catch last year?
2nd. Yeah.
Was he?
He was
Second of what? Tyreek?
Yeah, who was first? Tyreek?
I don't remember the list, but I did look this up before. I will pull it up while we're talking, but I know that he was 2nd, though.
I mean, at that point, it's like, what then at what point do you say who's taking over a game or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, man. If I looked at his game logs, I see a lot of 100-yard games. That's all.
He was 2nd to George Pickens. That's who it was. George Pickens had 18.1. Ayuk had 17.9.
Would not have guessed that.
Yeah.
I think if they made Ayuk the focal point of the offense, gave him even 25 more targets, you would see him taking over the game a lot more. Like Matt said, not only are they not a pass first, pass down the field type team, but how many teams did they play this past season where they were up big by the 3rd quarter? You're not going to be throwing the ball down the field when you're up 14 plus points with, 18 minutes to go. It's not their style of play. Now, that's also the 49ers argument when it comes to this contract is, well, we don't really need you that much. I would argue, Mike, that we didn't see Kittle take over a game when Ayuk and Debo were out. We didn't see Debo take over a game when Kittle and Ayuk. Because to be honest, I can't think of a time where 2 were out and 1 was there off the top of my head. I have seen Kittle take over games. I have seen Debo take over games, but it seems like it's been about 2 years. He took over. You could say he took over that Philly game for Debo. But you know, the spread was even this year when it came to who finishes the 49ers leading receiver. I saw a tweet. I'll pull it up. Who broke it down? But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, but like, just okay. Even with that in mind, with all of them healthy, even when has Ayuk ever just dominated a game? Like it's way more than rare, right? Like if the Super Bowl had have ended in the 49ers favor, it was Jawan Jennings that was going to be the Super Bowl MVP. It wasn't Brandon Ayuk, wasn't Debo, wasn't Kittle. It was going to be Jawan Jennings, a guy who threw for and caught a touchdown in the Super Bowl, right? Like it wasn't Ayuk.
Well, he can't throw the ball to himself. I mean, he was getting open.
Yeah, but it was still going to be a wide receiver, not him or even Debo.
I get
like,
my argument is
that
his fault. Is that his fault that Kyle Shanahan didn't say get him the ball? You know, like Brock Purdy didn't make the decision to throw him the ball when he's open.
Well, that's the thing, though. That's the thing.
That's
if Brock Purdy didn't make the decision to throw him the ball, chances are he wasn't as open as everybody was saying. That's just my opinion on it.
He's open on that last third down. Not the one with Chris Jones in his face, the one before that. That's all I know. I keep seeing that clip, and Purdy's so
Are you talking about in the end zone?
No. Before that, it's in regulation.
Okay.
In regulation, third down, slant. You get the Trent McDuffie corner blitz. Ayuk is wide open, but
if the blitzer is hot, right? Then there's no check down, there's no progression. It's you throw to one guy because you have a rusher that's hot. Like that to me, I don't count that like that's luck of the draw or whatever, dude. Like if you have 0 and you're just throwing it, like again, that's like you said, it's predetermined. You're not getting to the backside slant where Ayuk was on that play. You're just not doing it. Unless you want him to, again, get his elbow blown out. You know what I mean?
He doesn't have the protection, power at the line.
People say, Ayuk was open and could have caught that touchdown in overtime. Well, I mean, that's not the progression. That's not where you're going. So
I don't blame Purdy for that.
It's easy to play coulda, woulda, shoulda. The person that takes over the most games for this 49ers team in terms of skill position players is Christian McCaffrey, and that's just the way that it's going to be. Like, that's just the way that it's going to be. That's the way that Kyle Shanahan wants to play. And it's cool. Like, I think that Brandon Ayuk is actually a really good player. And like we said, he would be a 1 on every other team. But at the same time, you can make top 5 wide receiver money, not having to put in top 5 wide receiver effort and take top 5 wide receiver hits. So I think that's a plus for Brandon Ayuk and his longevity.
We got another super chat here from Sean. He says, name the game he has taken over. I can list multiple to the previous names mentioned, except Jennings. He isn't even Anquan Bolden, which is what he tries to be. I don't know if he tries to be Anquan.
Again, though, what is taking over? And does anybody truly take over 60 minutes? Or is it a few plays where you make – I've seen Ayuk have multiple big plays in a third and a fourth quarter of a game that – he ends up finishing with 3 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown or whatever. But all 3 of those catches came when the 49ers needed them or at a key point in the game. To me, that's taking over at a certain aspect. We need to just better define what taking over actually is. Because, I mean, in terms of route running and stuff, Ayuk's cooking his dude more often than not.
Yeah. I found this tweet from Matt Barrows. 49ers 2023 weekly receiving yards leader. Ayuk week 1, 129. Debo week 2, 63. Debo week 3, 129. Ayuk was out that week 3 game. Ayuk week 4, 148. Kittle 67 in week 5. Ayuk 76 in week 6. Kittle 78 in week 7. Kittle 149 in week 8. Kittle 116 in week 10. Ayuk 156 in week 11. I assume this is Samuel 79 in week 12. Debo 116 in week 13. Debo 149 in week 14, McCaffrey 72 in week 15, Kittle 126 in week 16, Ayuk 114 in week 17, and then Conley because the rest of the starts in week 18. So if you see the tally at the bottom, Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo all tied with 5 games that they led the team in receiving yards. McCaffrey had 1. and Chris Conley had one.
That just tells me that Brock Purdy's spraying that ball around the field.
Exactly. It's so perfectly distributed. It's almost like it's planned. Yeah, the chat is saying Debo in the Eagles game is their definition of taking over a game.
Well, you know, I'm just not here for the slander that Brandon Ayuk isn't the 49ers' best pure wide receiver, because that's just not true. It's just not true.
He is.
And you guys can rationalize that shit. Like Kenny says, fourth option. That's completely untrue.
Wait, whoa,
like
how?
No serious person actually believes that shit. No disrespect to you, Kenny. I'm just saying.
But how can you say that with a straight face? While I agree with you that he's the best pure wide receiver, how can you say he's not the fourth option? The offense is more likely to go through Debo, Ayuk, or Kittle than it is to go through Brandon Ayuk. I mean, I'm sorry, Debo, CMC, or Kittle than it is to go through Ayuk. It's never an offense around what Ayuk does in his skill sets. We haven't seen that. We've never seen an offensive game plan saying, Ayuk, you go out there and do this, and then we'll dictate based off of what you do and what you get. He's never the first option. It doesn't, even though he's the number one wide receiver. So again, I'm agreeing with you with that. The offense isn't formed around what him and his skill set is.
Right. It's formed around CMC.
And Debo.
Less about Debo since CMC came here. I think Debo is a vestigial part of this offense at this point. And I think that played itself out. When you're not doing the wide back stuff and you're getting clamped in the Super Bowl, like you've kind of outlived your usefulness. Coming up lame in the third quarter again with another soft tissue injury. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about Debo. I think the best thing the 49ers could have done was trade him at the draft, but, you know.
Ayuk?
No, Debo.
Oh, yeah.
This is Debo. To me, this is Debo Samuel's last year in San Francisco because they can get out from under that contract next year, and I think they need to because he's not producing.
Wow. Ooh, that hits hard. That's heavy.
I think,
agree.
But it's true.
Yeah. I think if the Niners were going to move off of Brandon Ayuk, it would have been at the draft, because you can't sit here and tell me this is a team all in, willing to do whatever it takes to win the Super Bowl this year, but you're going to trade away your top receiver. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, with nothing in return for at least a year, unless they're getting a top receiver back that's already under contract, which I don't think would happen, because why not just pay BA? I don't think he's going to get moved.
And by the way, the reason why I think that a deal gets done is that the 49ers touched base with Minnesota about potentially trading for Justin Jefferson, who they would have had to give this gigantic contract to. So the financials are there. It's just they're in a game of chicken. Who's going to blink first? Yeah. But I do think it gets done.
Sean Super Chat said, "Come on, bro. Think of Debo's highlights and Ayuk's. Yeah, he can catch and block. He is not great. Have you ever seen CMC bust multiple tackles on a way to a win? He doesn't score. He is just solid, but he thinks he's JJ."
I don't even know. I don't even know, man. I got nothing for that.
Thank you, Sean.
I appreciate the super chat, and I think we're just at a difference of opinion here, to be honest. And that's fine.
Brandon Ayuk is better than Jawan Jennings. Brandon Ayuk is better than Debo Samuel.
By leaps and bounds better than Jawan Jennings. As a pure wide receiver, leaps and bounds better. And now that CMC is there and Debo's not doing the wide back stuff, particularly because the wide back stuff is super obvious at this point. Again, he had the one fantastic season that got him paid, but it was a lot like the old Miami Dolphins running the, whatever the Wildcat offense, where it got figured out. And when you put Debo Samuel in the backfield, it just becomes a very easy exercise in trying to contain that. It's why Christian McCaffrey does it better. Because I think, honestly, as a pure route runner, I think Christian McCaffrey is a better route runner than Debo Samuel is.
Yes, I agree. And people don't want to admit that because one's a running back and one's a wide receiver, but I agree.
Yeah. So, and by the way, I see Kenny coming in with didn't Debo have 6 or 7 touchdowns rushing and receiving? you can't just do it based off of touchdowns, because Christian McCaffrey had a lot of touchdowns where they just wanted to give him the fucking ball, right? Didn't he have like 13 straight games with a touchdown?
Christian McCaffrey had a game that I just watched 2 nights ago. Damn, who was it against? Where he had this big run, like 70 yards, gets down to like the 3-yard line.
Seattle.
And then Mason, yes. And it was Seattle, yes.
And then Mason runs it in.
Right. Like the touchdown count doesn't mean shit when it comes to who's more productive.
Didn't Brock Purdy have a few of those, right, as well? Didn't he? Brock Purdy have like 4 or 5 rushing touchdowns because Christian McCaffrey took a 60-yarder, right? Like that's the only like knock, I guess, if you have one on Christian McCaffrey, is that he doesn't have like pure breakaway speed, right? Like he gets up to his top speed quick, and that allows him to get through or whatever, but he can be run down because he's, not like blazing fast. But at the end of the day, that's fine. Ayuk had 7 touchdowns this year, or 8 or whatever it was. So it's not like he's a slouch. But, when you talk about the guys that, again, what does Ayuk not do well? How about that? If you want to talk about him not taking over a game, why don't you tell me something that he's bad at? Because he's a great route runner. He has the best hands out of the wide receiver core on the team. He's one of the best blockers, along with Juwan Jennings. Like,
he blocks better than Juwan Jennings. The only player on the entire team that blocks better than him is an offensive lineman. There is no other player on the team that blocks better than him. He's in the top 10 in blocking in the entire NFL.
Okay, so then let's just say he's the best blocker. He puts forth, like, it's not like he's taking plays off. He's a max effort guy. Like, what else?
Healthy.
He stays healthy.
Yeah.
Like, again, he's one of the faster players on the team. Much faster than Juwan Jennings. I think in a straight line speed competition, he's probably faster than Deebo Samuel as well. But again, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
All right. Last topic for tonight is Kyle Shanahan. We had a big internal debate argument in the 49ers Hive group chat about where Kyle Shanahan is as a coach, and if the only thing that matters to people is winning it all, then should the 49ers consider moving off of him? I personally think it's an insane premise, because I was alive 5 years ago and I remember how shitty things could be. But some people apparently believe that if you don't win it all, you're a failure and you deserve to lose your job. Mike, again, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Kyle Shanahan? And does he have to win one soon, or will he risk getting fired?
Yes, he does have to win one soon. It doesn't mean that I'm over the Kyle Shanahan experiment, right? Like, I think that we have to calculate and keep in mind he hasn't been a head coach before, right? That alone should buy you 4 years. I'm sorry, but not sorry. Once you get past those 4 years, all right, now you're into year 2 of what's beyond that. And I think that Kyle Shanahan has come in. He's been a really, really good head coach. He knows how to get his team to the big dance. He's never not won a playoff game in his entire tenure here. Whether he's a first seed, second seed, third seed, doesn't matter. He will win at least one playoff game. Most of the time he wins 2. Right? Now it's what do you do in the Super Bowl? That's where we are now, and the clock should start ticking today. As a guy who lives out here in Philly, I remember what it was like listening to Philadelphia Eagles fans say, we don't want Andy Reid, we don't want Andy Reid, he doesn't know how to win the big game. If you ask those same people today who they would rather have over any other head coach in the NFL, they'd be like, yeah, we should have been more patient with Andy Reid. I don't want that same fate for 49er fans. We are right here. We're on the precipice. Kyle, we have to give him the opportunity to learn from his mistakes as well. It's not just the players. It's not just the quarterback. We have to give Kyle the opportunities to learn from his mistakes. I think those are all done. And not for nothing, if you look at this last Super Bowl, in overtime, the Niners had a lead. Maybe new rules change the outcome of this game, right? Like, there's so much to take into account. But even in overtime, the Niners had the lead in the last Super Bowl. I don't think we should just tap out on them right now.
That's what sucks the most. Is this is literally like the first game that was affected by the new overtime. Maybe the first Super Bowl. Maybe there was another playoff game that I can't remember off the top of my head that was affected by the new playoff rules. But this was the first Super Bowl that definitely was. And of course, it negatively impacted the 49ers. My number one, I guess, two questions are, if you're replacing Kyle Shanahan, tell me who's better suited to coach this team. And two, whose offense are you running? Are you keeping his offense? Because we all know Kyle Shanahan is the offense. Like that the team is his identity because of how intelligent he is when it comes to installing an offense and running it. What he can predict is going to happen. Yes, he has his flaws. Every coach does. He's still ridiculously young compared to all these other coaches, especially long-term successful coaches. And I've made the comparison to Andy Reid's tenure in Philadelphia for the last couple of years. I think it would be a haste decision for 49ers fans to act like they want to move off of Kyle Shanahan already, when this level of success outside of Bill Walsh, I don't think has been achieved by any other 49ers coach in franchise history. With that said, I think the clock is fucking ticking. You better win a ring soon, dude, because you're going to have a lot of angry people to answer. Matt, what's your take on this?
I'm just exasperated. People are so impatient and don't understand what they have until it's gone. It's the same thing that a lot of you sucker-ass Warriors fans are going through right now. It's over. The run's over. You guys get to be fucking irrelevant for 20 years because you didn't appreciate what you had. It was always just like, yeah, we're the best. Yeah, we're the best. But not really looking at what it takes to become the best, right? Like your boy that built your team. What's his name? What was the GM's name that left?
Oh,
Bob Myers.
Bob
Myers. He left, right? They don't have anything to show for it. They were in on a Paul George trade, apparently. Like, that was going to be something fantastic. They signed somebody who it takes 4 years to run up the court. Whatever. People are mad at Kyle Shanahan, who has a 54-29 record in the regular season in the last 5 years, is 8-4 in the playoffs. By the way, one of those losses being because Brock Purdy's elbow exploded. People are always, like you said, people are always looking for the next great thing, but who's going to be the next great coach? I already talked about a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Mike talked about Philly should have been more patient with Andy Reid. Do people think Andy Reid was in Philly for like 4 years? He was there for 13 years. He didn't win a Super Bowl until his 21st season as a head coach. And he's won 3 out of the last 6, I believe. And you guys want to jump ship off of a team that has been to the NFC Championship game 4 out of the last 5 years and has been to 2 Super Bowls in the last 5 years. No, they didn't win, and that really sucks. But you know what's worse than that? Being the fucking Cleveland Browns, being the fucking Jacksonville Jaguars, being these teams that rush through coaches, fire coaches after one season, and then continuously churn through that fucking coaching carousel. Do you think Kyle Shanahan grows on a tree? Do you think it's that easy to find a quality head coach? Most of these head coaches are rechurns, rehires, or guys getting their start. Like, who else would you get? You're not getting somebody from Shanahan's coaching tree because he's better than the people on his coaching tree. You're going to get a college coach? Like, who are you going to get? You're talking about a guy whose offense has now, like, rooted itself in the NFL through Sean McVay, through Mike McDaniel, through Matt LaFleur, through all of these guys. It's a variation of the Shanahan offense because he is the innovator there. Now, does he have flaws? Sure he does. I think his time management and his clock management and stuff, particularly at end of half and end of games and stuff, is lackluster. I think that there's something to be said for him out coaching himself and overthinking things sometimes. But at the end of the day, this is a lot like politics is. Everybody wants to complain about everything, but nobody wants to come up with a solution. So for all of you people out there that want to complain about Kyle Shanahan, unless you have an actual workable solution, you should go about your day.
Talk your shit, Matt. Let them know, baby. Huh? Y'all want to move on from Kyle? Give us a viable option.
Yep.
I don't know
what it
one.
is.
I
There
don't know
isn't
one because any option that you might think is better, the teams that they're on aren't letting them go. So who is it? Who is it?
There
And
you go.
I dare one of y'all to say D'Amico Ryans. I dare. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. I dare you. I dare you.
Houston ain't
I
letting
like
D'Amico
D'Amico.
Ryans go.
I love D'Amico, but even if he's the guy, you haven't seen him win shit. You haven't seen him get as far as Kyle's gotten. And Kyle's done it with not one, not two, but 3 quarterbacks that no one believed was good enough to do it. No one believed Brock Purdy was good enough to do it. No one believed Jimmy Garoppolo was good enough to do it. And no one believed that. Never mind. Whatever. I'm done.
Listen,
But, yeah.
Everybody wants the shiny new toy. Everybody that's calling for Kyle Shanahan's job is a spoiled child. Mommy, when's the next? Y'all ever seen the Harry Potter movies? When Harry's fat ass cousin is having his birthday and he's like,
Yep.
how many presents are there? What?
34.
14? That's one less than last year. What the fuck, guys? Like, that's how you guys are. That's how you guys are.
All right. This is going to be super random. Zach, before you go, I posted this like meme or gif of this dude like banging his head against like dressers and stuff. It was like this little alien looking dude.
Oh,
And
you're
everyone
talking
from Harry
about
Potter.
Dobby.
Dobby the house elf, yeah.
What the heck is that thing? What?
It's one of the magical
What?
creatures from Harry Potter.
He's an elf.
He's a house elf.
He looks like a naked cat.
That's because they're slaves to the wizards. They're
That's
slaves
interesting.
to the
All
wizards.
right.
They can't be set free until they're given clothes. So if you
He looks terrible.
Have
course
you
he
ever
does.
seen the
Oh,
movies?
I only saw like the first one. Maybe there was that dude wasn't in it, but
Oh, he
he
comes in the third, I think. Second.
every time they show
Second.
him in like the gifs, he's angry and like beating himself up and looks like his life is terrible.
It is.
it is.
But I'll tell you what,
That's the
he's a
whole
real
point.
one. That dude
He's-
rides
he-
for Harry every
Yep.
movie.
Gangster.
Yeah.
Love that
I
dude.
gotta check it out.
You
All
gotta
right,
check
I
it
love
out,
that
man.
dude.
I'm done.
He's
I'll check it out.
willing.
Yeah.
He's willing to go to the end.
Yep.
All right. I gotta go. So we're gonna wrap things up here. Final thoughts. I think Ayuk gets his contract done. I think the 49ers don't sign Justin Simmons and Kyle Shanahan, for the love of God. My mental health in my entire, I don't even know, emotional well-being is in your hands for the next 6 months. Please get the job done. 7 months. Please get the job done. I don't know what else to say at this point. Matt, any final thoughts?
Nah, man, be careful what you wish for because the 49ers are 25-9 in the regular season of the last 2 years. So it doesn't listen. We're in the midst of something special right now. The window is still open. Come see me when injuries notwithstanding, Kyle Shanahan has a losing season. Then we can start talking about maybe moving on. Maybe his tenure is getting a little long in the tooth, but none of the players still love him. His shtick isn't getting old. This isn't the Jim Harbaugh years. Jim Harbaugh stuck around a little bit too long, and the 49ers, I believe, missed the playoffs his last year that he was here. So once that happens, then we can start talking, right? Because everybody looks back at the Harbaugh years through rose-colored glasses and is like, oh, man, Harbaugh's so sick, dude. We should have kept him. Y'all didn't want him at the end. So enjoy what you got right now. In terms of Ayuk, I think he'll get it done. I think that, it's either way, he's going to play for the 49ers this season, whether a contract gets done or not. But I do think that they get it done because they've always gotten it done. And if they weren't going to, he would have been traded by now, just like DeForest Buckner was. So I'm good with that. And then in terms of Justin Simmons, whatever happens. I don't really care about that. I don't think Justin Simmons at this stage in his career he's not a marquee, page turning, like head turning type of player. Otherwise he would have been signed by now. So that's it for me. Are we doing a chat pack tonight, by the way?
I don't know if I have time. Maybe we'll
Okay.
stay for
All
the
right.
next one.
No worries.
Mike, let the folks know where to find you. Please, your final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts are this, man. Guys, enjoyed the holiday. Please be safe. If you guys are going to be setting off fireworks on your own, do them responsibly, safely. As a person who has set off fireworks out front of his home and they've fallen over and shot towards the house. I've got 4 kids. I grabbed one. My boy grabbed one. I have no idea what happened to the other 2, but they were safe. Don't be me in that situation. Know where your kids are and make sure that you are setting things off appropriately. To the veterans, we thank you. We salute you guys. We respect you guys. Thank you so much. God bless America. And follow the Patreon page, patreon.com/NB9ERS.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. Like Matt and Mike both said, have a happy 4th of July. Please be safe. Don't be one of the statistics who loses a finger tomorrow or this weekend. Don't Jason Pierre-Paul yourself. Be safe out there. With that said, Matt, please carry us out.
Yeah, as a famous person once said in some movie that I really like, America, fuck yeah. Enjoy your 4th of July tomorrow. Thank you guys for rolling in with us. It's been a while. I loved having you guys here. For Zach, for Mike, for myself. Thank you as always for joining us. You guys mean the world to us. We couldn't do this without you. This is the month that training camp starts, so get excited, guys. With that being said, for everybody here, until our next show, go Niners.